Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Catherine, and I am with Community CPA. We are a full-service accounting firm, so doing taxes, accounting, payroll, business consultations, and audits for your business needs. So many of you might have heard of us before. So for our Thursday webinars, we always do a special where we invite people from our community who are working with small businesses, working with a lot of immigrant and minority businesses to share resources, to share expertise. And this is kind of our way to give back. So today we have Kiva, Iowa. Our presentation will be on that. And Caitlin Byers is the program director for this initiative. So she's going to kick it off with telling us about this way that we can, that small businesses can get access through these sort of capital. It's a mix between kind of the crowdfunding and then a traditional loan sort of thing. So it's a unique model. So Caitlin, thank you so much for being on. We're happy to have you here and sharing. I know that you've participated with the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit in the past. Tell us a bit about you and then about this initiative.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me, Catherine. I appreciate the introduction. So my name is Caitlin Byers, and I serve as what is called the Capital Access Manager for this program, Kiva. And our geographic region, we serve Iowa and then also into the Quad Cities as well. So I'll share more about what Kiva is, how we brought this to the area, what this means for small businesses, and how, if you're interested in taking advantage of this program, what that might look like for you as a potential borrower, is what we call entrepreneurs or small business owners who are getting access to these funds. So a little bit about me. I work for an organization called NewBoCo. So you'll see on this first slide, NewBoCo is represented. It stands for the New Bohemian Innovation Collaborative. And we do a lot of programming that centers around entrepreneurship, innovation, and technical education. So anywhere from running an adult code school with multiple different curriculums that you can tap into. The idea is to get individuals into, adults into jobs and level up, specifically in that tech space, and keeping people here and building that tech talent in this area. As an example of something that happens in our adult side of things, on the kids side, when it comes to technical education, we have a ton of K-12 STEM education programs that span from teaching teachers how to teach computer science all across the state of Iowa, to, free workshops and introduction to code on the weekends. And then that entrepreneurial bubble is really where I fall. So I am a part of the entrepreneurship side of things, but we have run an accelerator program called the Iowa Startup Accelerator Program. And we're really in the business of working a lot with, in the past, our nonprofit was working a lot with early stage technical startups that, long-term, they might exit. It looks a very different structure than if you were to, build a small business that you plan to run for a number of years, that is located, might have a physical location. So for a while there, we're very focused on just that tech early startup, high growth company side of things. And as we kind of were building different partners and providing other resources in that entrepreneurship space, we realized there was such a need for small businesses, specifically access to capital. So there were a lot of different programs in our neighborhood that, these businesses were coming out of a small business accelerator program, or, going into an incubation space as a restaurant owner, but they needed to purchase a piece of equipment, or they didn't have the funds to actually purchase inventory. And in some cases, there were some barriers to entry. And we thought, gosh, what can we do to provide this as a resource? And is this a problem that's ongoing? And it seems to be a problem a lot of places across the world, but we're really focused here in Iowa. So it took about a year. We started doing some research, our nonprofit, and initially I was actually the director of development for NewBoCo and helped fundraise for the program. I actually have some experience running a small business as well. So it was kind of a fun, natural fit for me to say, hey, I would love to dive in and help take this program moving forward. So essentially, Kiva does provide capital access for financially excluded entrepreneurs. And you'll notice the logo, our nonprofit, NewBoCo, and Kiva, Iowa. Kiva is actually, let's see here, a global foundation. So it is also a nonprofit, and it was the world's first personal microlending website to ever exist. Very focused globally in other countries outside of the US, and about 6 years or maybe a little more ago, they decided to expand access to the to everyone in the US. So this has really been a growing effort here in the US, and there are different hubs that exist that help facilitate this loan process. So we are the Iowa hub. And what this is, when I say access to capital, what that means for Kiva specifically is up to $15,000 in a loan that is zero interest. And how that happens is that you actually have a lender network associated with Kiva. These are individuals all over the globe who pool small lending contributions together to provide access to capital for these entrepreneurs. So obviously we're specifically focused in Iowa, but kind of talking about Kiva as a whole, they do have quite a footprint. They've got about 2 million lenders worldwide that are part of this network, and have lent, that's actually closer to 2 billion. And I'm sure there's more countries represented now, because this slide might be a tad outdated, but this is just kind of zooming out, what that impact looks like globally. Give you a second to look at that. And then in the US, this is really specific to kind of what this looks like in the US. And then, I'll be talking about Iowa, so even more specific. So this program, we've been running this program now for about 1.5 years. And I'm just going to give you a sense of kind of when we say $15,000, zero interest, crowdfunding, microloans, what do all those things mean? What does it look like? How does it function? So that's really what I'm here today to talk to you about. So just wanted to make note that any picture that is depicted in this slide is actually an Iowa-based or a Quad Cities-based borrower. So again, just kind of reiterating that dreams are universal and opportunities are not. This is very much to help reduce those barriers to entry when it comes to financial access. So we are 100% of our borrowers are women-owned, minority-owned, or low to moderate income entrepreneurs. And again, I'll kind of talk about what those requirements or what that looks like. But this is just a snapshot of kind of what a profile looks like. So these aren't in Iowa, but I just took a quick shot of, what's happening on the site right now. You'll see when you go to kiva.org and you filter to North America, the US, you can see all the different profiles. There's usually about 70 to 100 different businesses that are sharing their story with the lender community and raising funds at any given time. So this is just an example of, if you go to the site, this is kind of what you'll see, all different types of businesses. There's a photo, there's the amount of money, and there's a quick snapshot of what they are raising. And then you can click into what they're trying to fund, and then you can click into the profile to get an even better idea of kind of what that looks like for that borrower. So there's a lot of slides in here. I'm going to just kind of briefly touch on some of these, but I'm happy to pass them along to Catherine and give you guys access to these. So really the idea for Kiva is that the end goal is to work, in more of that traditional financing space. But initially with small business, you do have to have established credit, collateral, audited business financials. So individuals who are just getting started, or, depending on the situation, there's a lot of barriers when it comes to getting a loan. Some individuals don't even feel comfortable walking into a bank, let alone their very early stage. They may not have the revenue to show, that this is something worth investing in. So again, this is just another option that exists. It's not really in competition with those other options. It's really to just help build that momentum as you grow and help you expand, so that you have, access to other funds when you need $50,000, $100,000 on down the way. So because it is quite expensive for lenders to offer these smaller microloans, this is where Kiva comes in. And, there are other options that exist, credit cards and other things, but the 0% interest is really what's important here, so that we're not putting people further into debt. We're really helping people kind of getting a jump start, or, take care of something that, I'll give examples of what that might look like, but it's so different for every business owner. So again, up to 15,000, the lowest you can be no lower than $1,000. So it's anywhere from 1 to 15, 0% interest rate. And then the terms are up to 3 years. So the borrower decides, do I want to pay this off in 1, 2, or 3 years? And that will determine, your monthly payment. So another visual, Kiva is very much at the beginning of that capital ladder, growing to access more traditional forms of financing as your business needs grow. This is sort of the web that depicts, who are serving the entrepreneurs and the communities that we're working with along the way. So I just want to touch on, if you look over to the left side of the screen, city governments, banks, community organizations that run local Kiva programs. That is NuboCo. So our nonprofit is that local program that is helping facilitate this loan process. We're the ones on the ground. Kiva is ultimately reviewing, doing a final review of the application and approving, but we're the ones that are working directly with the businesses. The borrowers, kind of moving on down this web, those are, the local entrepreneurs, the people in the community that can become Kiva lenders. Anybody who can contribute $25 could become a Kiva lender. That is the minimum contribution, but it's limitless. If you want to give 1,000, if you want to give 100, if you want to give 25, that is up to you. And then local philanthropists, these are, larger maybe funds that exist. We actually do have a matching partner. So that is a combination of banks that's jump-started through the Cedar Rapids Bank and Trust, Community Bank and Trust, Quad Cities Bank and Trust, and there's one other that I'm forgetting, Community State Bank, I think. That are in that network. So we have a pool of $100,000 that we're able to use matching funds. So as someone lends through the platform, we provide a 1-to-1 match through that fund. So that's who that is. And that really just helps us fund much faster, get people going, get the momentum up, and then also, keeping them in mind as a partner as you grow your business. That could be a potential banking partner because they have invested in your success. And then these small community orgs that can serve as trustees, that is any sort of like entrepreneurial service organization. That could be your local chamber. It could be a SCORE representative. It could be the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit potentially. But you can be registered as an organization that is supporting entrepreneurs. And then if you have someone in your network that you're familiar with, let's say, it's an example of that is we had a local farmer. He was working with an organization called Feed Iowa First. He was a farmer in their program. He's accessing a Kiva loan. That Feed Iowa First group was able to endorse his application. So not only are they providing business assistance on the ground, they can actually provide an endorsement on their application so that when lenders are looking at that application, they can say, oh, okay, they have a little bit more credibility. They're working with someone directly. That makes me feel really comfortable contributing maybe a little bit extra, knowing that they're connected and off and running. So what does this loan program look like? This is the eligibility. I'm just going to touch on, got to be over 18 years old, but we did have an 18-year-old who was, building model trains and selling them online and would like to own his own shop someday. Pretty cool. He was actually 3D printing some of the parts. So he was paying for the 3D printer. Things like you can't be in active bankruptcy or foreclosure. That could be a part of the past. It needs to be resolved. You also need to be, you can't be in any sort of direct sales. So these multi-level marketing type businesses, direct sale, Mary Kay, for example, there are some larger, franchise businesses that don't qualify, Airbnb to name a couple, Lyft drivers, get a lot of people that want to pay for a car that is a personal expense. So it is not something that you got to be using this to actually grow your business, not investing in something personal. So this is just kind of a snapshot of that. This is an extension of that. I did mention Lyft, Airbnb, Uber, that kind of thing. Direct sales, Mary Kay, that kind of business. And then obviously nothing illegal. So there are things that we chat through that at the beginning just to make sure that we are in that eligibility space. But outside of that, we really are seeing businesses all across various industries, which is really neat. So to give you kind of a side-by-side of, some people are saying, okay, crowdfunding, community-backed loan, what's the difference between other things that exist out there? This is sort of just a side-by-side. So to name a few things that are different, Kiva is a vetted process, right? Anybody can start a GoFundMe. They do amazing things, especially seeing like disaster relief and other things happening in the world. They serve a very specific purpose. Anybody contributing to that, it is a donation that does not get paid back, right? So you kind of just put your trust in that person and they take the funds and go. This is, again, a vetted process. As the individual pays back that money goes back to the lender. So if you give $25, they repay that over time. You can either recycle those funds and give it to another borrower on the platform, or you can just take your money, whatever works. There aren't any fees involved on any end. So every dollar going through the platform is going to the entrepreneur. This is not a for-profit endeavor. It is run by a nonprofit. There are set parameters in terms of the amount of money. So really the reason for that is it's designed to not just be, allowing people $50,000, right? But where are we right in our business? Does that make sense for you? That's a very high goal. It's hard to crowdfund that much. This is a little bit more attainable for a crowdfunding platform. And also we want to set borrowers up for success. So if you're pre-revenue, for example, you may not get approved for a $15,000 loan. We might start with $3,000 just to say, hey, let's get this started. Let's generate some revenue. And then as you pay it off, we can potentially go back and you can go through the Kiva process again, and we can grow in that way. So it's not just a one-time thing. You can be approved a second time, a third time. But it's really designed to make sure we're meeting business owners where they are, and we're not setting you up for failure. We want to make sure that you're able to pay back that loan, and we're not just doling out money left and right. You got to use it for the intended purpose. And the idea is to expand, grow, and then kind of look at next steps there. When it says success rate, that's actually reaching that goal. So 95%, many GoFundMe's or Indiegogos or that sort of like platform, you don't always reach your goal. Some people set it too high, whatever the parameters might be. It's your personal network you're tapping, so you don't have that larger audience. So there are just some differences here that you might not notice on the surface, but as you think through it, it's like, oh, okay, that's why there's this associated lender network, because it just is a different structure when it comes to crowdfunding. Kiva loan sizes. So I did want to mention, I kind of already touched on this. You pay, you grow your borrowing capacity over time. You could always access another. And this is kind of the buckets that you could fall into in terms of, where you might qualify depending on how long you've been in business. And there's a lot of other factors that go into it, but we like to set people up for, we don't want to set this the expectation too high that everybody's going to get approved for 15,000. Again, we want to make sure that we're not putting you further into debt. We want to make sure that we're setting up for success. You're able to, start your business and then go from there. A lot of people use this money for various things. I would say the top uses are purchasing equipment, hiring someone else other than themselves, or maybe making a new part-time hire, working capital in general, just kind of need that infusion of capital. And then space upgrades. So a lot of people, we'll even have individuals who have a space that's really going great, but they need a sign, and a sign can be $12,000 and they don't want to take out a loan to get a sign for the building. This could be an option for that. And then we have people who are very early stage and they just need to buy inventory to get started. Again, it looks different for everyone, but I want to just touch on a few things that kind of come up time and again. So how does this work? The application process, you share your personal story, your business story, and what your loan is being used for. So there is a narrative section that outlines those three things. You submit a photo with you, some sort of featuring the borrower, the small business owner, and the business. So instead of just sitting in my kitchen like this, if I owned a food truck, I'd probably stand right outside the food truck so that as people are looking through those profiles, they feel inclined to click on you and say, oh, really cool. I see them. I can understand what their business is in a snapshot. And then there's some internal questions. Obviously, we want to know your financial health and what that looks like personally, and on the business side, if those financials exist. And then in some cases, we do need different business documentation. So they do ask for business proof, which can mean a number of different things. So we can talk about that. And then what was the other thing? Sometimes bank statements. If you have your personal, we really recommend having your personal account and your business account separate. And then once you have that established, like uploading some sort of a bank statement so that we can determine that. The private fundraising period. So this is, there are two parts. So once we go through the application process, I'm working with you on that. And we're saying, okay, let's change this. Let's, update this. Once we get it to a good spot, I send it to Kiva for final review. Their team reviews it and they send an email to the borrower. that says you've been approved for $7,500, paying back over 2 years. And here is the first step. The first step is private fundraising. So before you can go on the public site, there's sort of this credibility check that you get 15 days and you've got to recruit a certain number of people in your network to support your loan. Now that is most of the time, I would say hovers around 7 to 12. So let's say it's 10 individuals that you need to give or that need to lend $25 to your campaign. That can be posted on your social media. Maybe it's a following that you already have. It could be sent to friends and family through an email, just link it or text it to your friends and family. And then we get a number of people who say, oh my gosh, I don't really have a network, or, there aren't a lot of people in my circles that can give $25 to this. What are some other options? We do have a lot of people on our staff at NewBoCo, in addition to other partners that have accounts. So this is really a period that we're just making sure that you're serious about the business, that you can tell your story, that you're not like hiding away in a basement, because this is a visible process. So we want to make sure that that you're able to communicate what you're doing with your business. So if we find that people are really not moving anywhere in this space and they're kind of hesitant and, this isn't really what they're looking for, that's a really good indication that, hey, let's probably not move forward with this process. In most cases, I would say people are really off and running. They send the link, people get excited about it, but they might need 2 or 3 more people. They reach out to me and I help connect them with maybe someone in their area that they can reach out to, share their story, and convince an individual locally to contribute. So we have other ways of, I don't want ever this to be, again, I don't want anybody to be fearful of this period, but it is just kind of a space to say, hey, are they serious about this? Another further credibility check, that again, we just want to be in communication to make sure that we can get you to the finish line. So once your campaign goes public, you're live on the platform, you're open to all those viewers' eyes. And the idea is that over the next, depending on how fast you fundraise in private fundraising, 30 to 40 days, 45 total that you're on that you're fundraising. But depending on how long you're in public, we just track your progress as we go. So you'll get updates via email that will say, hey, 50 people have contributed, you're 62% of the way there, or whatever it looks like. So this is just an example of what that kind of how that appears on the campaign as you go. And that allows you to track and, in some cases, maybe get the word out in your network. We market it on our end. We do everything we can to make sure that these are funded. And to give you an idea, I have had 29 borrowers. One campaign did not fund. And I think it was just the nature of the business. I won't call that one out specifically, but it just wasn't something that really resonated or that people felt very comfortable contributing to. We thought there might be an issue. We set that expectation, but in most cases, we found that it does fully fund. So once it's funded, we pay out the funds via a PayPal account. So you set up a PayPal account initially. Those funds are dispersed within 7 days and you're off and running. Really exciting time that you just, everybody gets like hyped up with the last 3 to 5 days that we're fundraising, and usually it ends in success. But we do like to set that expectation that, it does require some involvement on the borrower side of things to really urge their personal networks and put it on their social media, engage with the lender base, and just as we're doing on our end. And then repayment occurs monthly. So as you're paying back, you can also see on your page, okay, I'm 19% of the way there. Depending on how much people have contributed, that percentage goes back into their accounts. And I will fly right through this because I realize we're sort of at time. There's some best practices I tossed in here for you to look at. And then I just want to see what it looks like on the lender side of things. So it's very easy to say, lend now, pick your amount. Once you repay, you get your money back in your account and you repeat. And then I'll give you some faces of Kiva. So Davenport, Dubuque, creative business, a grocery store, a seamstress, a woman who's doing accounting services for small business owners, an African clothing store that's actually opening. They're doing a grand opening in a new shop this weekend, thanks to a Kiva loan. Very exciting. Another space that just opened in Avoca, Iowa, a local farmer that I think I referenced earlier, another retail space and a market. Let's see, we've got a restaurant owner. This was a coffee shop that's a cafe on the go. So she actually has a coffee mobile, and then a consulting service that actually, he does a lot of podcasting and stuff. These are just a snapshot. If you go to our site, nubo.co/Kiva, you can see most of the borrowers. I think we're still missing 5 to 6 that we've got to update that have funded recently. But again, we've seen across so many different industries, we've been able to provide these business owners with this early capital, and it's been really exciting. So open to questions. I have way more I could always talk about, but I would love to hear from the audience.
Yeah, thank you so much, Caitlin. I think this is great information that you have shared. I think we'd love to hear if you have any other sort of recommendations as people think about this process, like what I think you detailed what makes a successful campaign, but any tips from those that have been successful?
Yeah, so I would say the profile pic seems to be very important. If it clearly displays yourself and your business and you look excited, that is great. And then I think it's really great if you can make it very personal in your narrative, really do share about how did you start this business? What does this mean to you? Is there a way that you're giving back to the world? This is very social good focused. So they really love to see business owners that are in some way doing something good, whether that's on the sustainability of the products that you're choosing, or maybe you work locally with a nonprofit and some of your portion of your proceeds go, whatever that might look like. Or maybe it comes on the employment side of things. Like if there are some best practices that you are using to make the planet a better place to live, please incorporate that. That does help. And then I would say that endorsement is also really, it's a 50-50 whether or not people are endorsed. So it's clearly you can still fully fund without it, but I would say we raise money faster if you have that endorsement. And I would say just be kind of open-minded and tech willing. I said you don't have to be tech able, be tech willing. We want to make sure that you're open to, there might be something new we're throwing at you, but we're always here to walk you through it, whether that's on, setting up for the repayment, or there are just, things that like with PayPal, verifying things, these are things we can walk through and help you through. It's just, we want to make sure that we're all willing to learn and not, we don't need you to be totally proficient in all the things. So we're right here with you, making sure that you're successful, and your success is our success. So we very much care about these businesses and want to make sure that they are succeeding. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think those are our main questions. Do you have any other final thoughts before we conclude?
I do want to mention, so we have a lot of people ask what other support is available, and we don't want to just say, here's your $10,000, good luck, we'll see you later. We now consider these business owner a part of, this Nubo family and this Kiva Iowa network. And so we do have some different events where we are trying to build community around that. So whether that's engaging people in our 1 million cups presentations, or, giving them tickets to our festivals or different coffee meetups. But in addition to that, we do have a partnership with a group called the Global Good Fund out of Maryland. They provide at no charge, because we receive some grant funding for the next 3 years. Anybody who is a borrower is able to go through a 6-month program for leadership and business development. And that's a really great way for not only to get access to these additional resources and mentorship and expertise, but it's also a really nice community of other business owners that are located, nearby to you, that you can bounce ideas off of and kind of, again, just build that community. So I think, there's a lot of emotions that go into running a business, and it's really important to have those people along the way that are there, that understand where you're coming from. And we're all coming from different backgrounds, and in some cases speaking different languages. In some cases, we've had different experience with financing. So whatever that looks like for an individual, it's really great in a safe space to kind of build that support network and have access to those resources. So we're really trying to provide not only that, but again, we also have funds to offer 15 hours of mentorship for each individual as well. So we're really trying to make sure that we're setting people up for success, not just financially, but also the day-to-day operations of the business.
Well, I love that. I will connect you with the participants who have enrolled in this. So we'll connect you, and it's also on Facebook. So please do connect with us. All right, Caitlin, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Well, it's always great chatting with you. And so thanks for allowing me to come present. And if there's any questions, you can reach me at iowa@local.kiva.org. I can send my number, whatever is easiest. Give me a call. I'm here to assist. So thanks again.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.